Hi, welcome to my channel, Nancy Jean's Garden, and I also have invited Dorothy Morgan over because we're going into a week that's going to have an eclipse in it on the 20th of April,
Yep.
and that's what we're going to be primarily talking about, and also kind of we've gone through all this stuff at the that happened at the vernal equinox, springs equinox, and
Mhm.
we went through a lot of changes, and then a lot of planets moved. So, give us the update, Dorothy, on where we've been shoved to now by the space gods.
Lord God Almighty, save us from ourselves.
Hmm. Where we
I'm not
are.
religious. I'm not religious, but that just came out, so
Hmm.
we got to leave it. Um, right at the equinox, you're right. At the equinox astrologically is 0 degrees of Aries. It's a place in space. It's astronomical. It's a place
Hmm.
in space where the celestial equator, meaning the equator of the Earth, poof,
Hmm.
pretend it goes out into space, and then the sun crosses
Hmm.
that twice a year.
Hmm.
Equinoxes, spring and fall. So we know astronomically and astrologically the beginning of the zodiac, which, and this is important, 0 degrees of any of the cardinal signs, meaning spring, fall, winter,
Hmm.
summer, all of those.
Hmm.
Super important. It's the 4 cardinal points, it's the 4 angles, it's the 4 directions. So yeah, we had that. And to have a new moon just hours after, within 24 hours of
Hmm.
the sun entering the sign of Aries, that was 0 Aries new moon as well. Really big, important. It was just almost one, but it was 0 degrees. So yeah, that was the beginning. That's like the ultimate new moon.
Hmm.
And I know we're going to talk about eclipses today, but it's a really important thing because, some of the hot topic things these days are like blue moons and red moons and blood moons and all of this stuff, right?
Hmm.
Well, astrologically, to me, that's more important than what a calendar, a made up calendar is. I know it's something we've
Right.
been following for generations, but decades, hundreds of years. But, anyways, 0 degrees of Aries, new moon at the spring equinox for the northern hemisphere, of course. Yeah, absolute new beginnings, and it is absolutely, it's like a premature baby. You've
Hmm.
birthed something, and we are going to hover over it. We're going to pay attention to what is important, give it absolutely everything we need to give it. And that's the month that we're in right now. And, and it's almost done. A month is not a very long time for anything to really establish
Right.
itself and get moving, especially 0 degrees. So I have a system that I've been using for years that every new moon begins a new 3 year. It's called the lunar gestation cycle.
Hmm.
That's another show. But I do talk about it in my Patreon if anybody wants to join me over there and learn something new. But the new moon that we have coming up, that's an eclipse. Now, on the East Coast of the United States, the Eastern time zone, it is on April 20th, and it's at just after midnight. So if you're anywhere further west of there, so, your time zone, right?
Right.
So central and further west, it is the night of the 19th.
Hmm.
So for you guys, it will be at what, 11:13 p.m.
Right.
on April 19th, right? And just you do the math. You know where you live. And
Hmm.
so this eclipse, which is also a new moon, it's the next new moon, it
Right.
is at 29 degrees and 50 minutes of Aries. So like the blue moon that everybody loves to talk about, oh, we have 2 full moons in a calendar month. Well, we have 2 new moons in an astrological month. We started with 0 new moon and we end with 29 degrees. And so this is like parentheses around Aries.
Hmm.
Aries is what? Just look it up and find the keywords that make sense to you. But I'm going to talk about it. And Nancy Jane, you're going to add in
Right.
too.
Right.
The Aries is about being self-focused,
Hmm.
selfish. There's always the light and the dark side of this. And if you
Right.
take any of these too far, one turns into the other, right?
Hmm.
So if we're focusing on ourselves with both of these new moons, perfectly fine. That's what the Aries new moon wants us to do. It's just like say, wait a minute, hey, you know what? This doesn't work for me. This
Hmm.
doesn't work for me anymore, right? Or this is what I need from you.
Hmm.
Or I've been waiting a long time to do this.
Hmm.
all of these things, and of course, plenty more, are things that Aries inspires in us. You don't have to be an Aries person to be inspired when the sun and other planets are moving through the sign of Aries. Jupiter's in there now too. So
Mm-hmm.
Jupiter's really been stirring things up an awful lot as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we have a new moon and now an eclipse, it's just a hybrid. So it's a very short eclipse. It's not an annual eclipse. That one's in October. So it's just a small hybrid eclipse. It's on the earth, where the shadow of this on the earth, there'll be some heightened focus.
Mm-hmm.
That's down in the South Pacific near Indonesia.
Mm-hmm.
But having a new moon at 29 Aries and an eclipse is about, yeah, I do need to take some steps forward.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I write about this on my blog and I talk about it in my other videos. And it's just, it's 29 degrees. Take that Fool card. Those of you who know the Tarot, I am an amateur at that, but I've used my discretion and looked at that card. To me, it's a 0 in the Tarot. 0 is important, but he's also leaving stuff behind, this Fool card, right? Leaving stuff behind, only has what it needs in its little sack on its shoulder.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. Which shows me, especially with this eclipse at 29 degrees, that I want you and me, knowledge comes with us. There's nothing to carry. It's in
Mm-hmm.
us. It's knowledge. It's wisdom. So we are bringing forward with this eclipse. This is something we can all focus on with this new moon eclipse, is what am I bringing forward and what am I leaving behind?
Mm-hmm.
Right? As you and I are recording this few days before the eclipse, we're in a lunar phase that's about releasing and letting go. So if you see this before the eclipse, really hone in on what you're moving forward with and what you're not moving forward with, what you're leaving behind. Hone in on that right now. And then when we get to that eclipse on the 19th and the 20th, for a few days after that, for weeks after that, honestly, we have this opportunity to say, what am I taking forward with me? It's just like taking a trip, you're on the plane and all you get is one carry-on. And what are you bringing with you?
Mm-hmm.
Your most important things. And to me, in a real practical fashion, Nancy Jean, that's how I see this new moon eclipse to begin with.
Yeah, well, when you talk about, one thing I think people need to understand in astrology, for some bizarre reason, they have in each of the little wedges, there's a counting system in there, and it goes from 0 to 29 degrees. It doesn't, not 0 to 30, and you'd think if you looked at 360 divided up, there'd be 30 in each one. There actually are 30 segments, but the first one, and trust
we start with 0 because we start with 0.
0. Yeah, you
0,
astrology
1,
start with 0,
2.
right?
Yeah.
It's just like
3.
the tarot starts with 0.
Yep.
And then 1, and in a way, Aries is the magician. Aries is I am. Aries is the sense of self that for people have, and whatever planets end up in there for you, if you get any, or you have any angle to it, it has a lot to do with what your sense of self is. That's why one of the things I tell people, I go, well, you took a formal course in astrology, which is true, but it was with a lovely woman. We did it at her home. She had 8 people in the class, and we all and what she made us do first, and this was in the old days, guys, before computers.
That's how I learned.
And you had like a pen and a ruler and a figuring out the degrees and an
God, I'm so glad that changed.
Oh God, trust me, I wouldn't even discuss the stuff if it hadn't. But you learn hardcore the very basics, and one of the basics you learn is people say, but I don't have anything in that sign. So, you do. You do. You have squares, you have oppositions, you have sextiles, you have trines. And trust me, some way or another in that pie chart, something's going to go back there, even if it looks bizarrely empty.
Right. And to visualize it, I mean, everybody knows what an astrology wheel looks like. It's just a wheel, 360 degrees divided by 12. And you don't have to have anything in the Aries sector, but that sector is around us. We do embody every zodiac sign there is.
Right.
And when there are big happenings, which is what we're talking about, this is
got a whole lot of stuff going on in there.
A lot of stuff. So no matter, you're not in Aries and you don't identify as having any planets in the sign of Aries, it doesn't matter, because that which it's fine. It won't impact you as much as somebody who does have something in Aries right here. It's that area of your astrology, you know, I'm not going to talk about all 12 houses today, but each sector, you know, has a purpose. And activities that we are experienced through that sector, that house, and so that area is being activated. And Jupiter entered Aries. Oh my gosh, I don't have it in my head. Give me a second. Jupiter entered Aries at the end of December. And so Jupiter has actually been activating that Aries for quite some time.
Right.
So now that we have, you know, that first that new moon that we had on March 21st at 0 Aries.
Right.
Well, back at the end of December is when Jupiter was there. So Jupiter already stirred your Aries area up for all of us. It started stirring it up. And it's not going to be done until we get to May when Jupiter moves into Taurus. And maybe that's another video we'll talk about.
That's another
all
video.
about finances, all about finances.
Right.
Yeah.
What I was really going to get to is the best thing you can do is have a person draw up your chart that not like Dorothy does, and draw up your natal chart if you haven't ever had that done, and then carry it with you. Figure out and pick maybe a point or something when you go to a good astrologer. They'll say, this has been kind of key throughout your life, and you'll see it. And like, I know that my natal Jupiter is at 1 degrees of Aquarius. Actually 1.8 something minutes or something. It's weird. Anyway,
should have looked it up. I didn't have it. Yeah,
that's okay. And I know that everybody's having a fit because Pluto's going in and out of Aquarius and what it's doing to us individually. Well, Pluto's also passing on top of my natal Jupiter, and Jupiter is expansion, good luck, good things coming towards you. Also, it can be a bag of gas if it's in the wrong environment.
It's also learning. Let's
Learning.
yeah, I'll add some other beautiful keywords to Jupiter. Jupiter is us expanding our knowledge. It's our philosophy. It's our beliefs. So it's kind of our faith. We don't have to make it the dogma of religion, but it's what we believe in, that kind of faith.
It's your spiritual side.
It's our truth. And you have it in Aquarius, and Aquarius is that unique sign where that's why you have purple hair and you talk the way you talk, because you believe in things that are very different than other people in your generation. Generation, we're in the same generation, but in, you know, demographic, that's a better word. Yeah. That's why you're meant to,
and so, and when you can just kind of know that that's happening, like when Jupiter and Saturn, not to get too arcane, met and changed us from earth to air for it's 200 years, right? 200 years.
Yes, it is. Yeah, it's right around 200.
Yeah, they met on my natal Jupiter.
Oh yeah, so
so I really felt the blast. I felt
a
blast from the past. And the thing is,
I almost swore there. It was like, oh, F.
That's pretty big.
It's huge.
And anyway, it's one of those things. So I guess whenever Dorothy's on, I really want to proselytize for people getting a chart, not being afraid of the angles. No, it's not a geometry test.
No, that's my job anyways. If you have a reading, it's not your job to read the chart.
It's like you don't have to know all the cards, or you don't have to know all the stones when you work with me. You kind of talk to us and say, how can I use the energy? You have a much better perspective on. So how are we going to use this weird eclipse that is only hit Indonesia?
Right. Well, I mean, it's still affecting all of us, but when eclipses, and the reason I brought that up, because you and I had a conversation before we started recording about the locations of some of these eclipses, and it is important because anytime there is a solar eclipse, solar is a new moon, solar eclipses. Can I share my screen?
Sure. Yeah, I think so.
I want to, wait a minute, let me go grab what I want to grab before I show everybody everything. Here we are. I just want people to see,
the paths.
I wanted them to see, this is what, here we are, open this up. There we go. It takes a second for it to show up. This is what I know I wrote my own stuff in here, but this is what a solar eclipse looks like. This is what a new moon also looks like. The difference is the solar eclipse means that the sun and the moon and the earth are all in the same alignment. You can see my mouse going back and forth. A regular new moon, the they are in this position, but the moon is either up higher than the sun or below the sun, because the moon doesn't go around the earth at a perfect, it moves. It does
Mm-hmm.
this and it moves. And that's
Mm-hmm.
declination, and it moves. And so when twice a year, approximately, sometimes it's a little more than that, but usually it's twice a year, it gets in perfect alignment, and you can see there's a shadow. See, there's a shadow that comes down to the earth,
Right.
the large shadow. It means it's partial eclipses where you can see it partially, but
Mm-hmm.
where that big dark cone comes in, is where it is what we like to focus on the earth. And I'll stop my share now.
Right.
And so the reason I'm just sciencey, I just want you guys to get the practicality of it and, use it however you want. But the thing is, this time it's showing up in Indonesia. It shows up in somewhere on the planet every year. And typically there will be some sort of weather events. I believe there's a volcano that's a little bit that's stirring right now in
Well, they had
Indonesia.
one
Or
blow up right in the middle of Indonesia. Yeah.
oh, they just did. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, there you go. It was before the eclipse. However, it's within the time frame. That was recently, I think.
Yeah, no, it was over the weekend. It really kind of went boom.
Really?
Yeah, they had one in Russia that went boom over the weekend
Because
too.
this goes near Russia too. This goes through
Right.
Russia and Indonesia. It goes through that whole part of the planet. I was going to look it up, but I couldn't find it fast enough to get it. But and I looked at it before, but it goes through part of Russia
Mm-hmm.
and through that. Just think of the Earth in the map, if you can,
Mm-hmm.
geometry, and it goes through that whole area. So yeah, well, there you go. So the eclipse, so
We've
it's
got, and
coming a little
looking
sooner.
ahead, people say, okay, so I'm hearing this on the week that it's going to happen, and I
Mhm.
haven't had time to plan.
Right.
We're in what they call the eclipse cycle, and it's not to try to get you completely insane, but there's times when the sun and the moon are really in the same declination. They're in
Yep.
the same plane. If it's if
Mhm.
there's a big plate and they go
Yep.
up and down off the rim of that plate. Well, there's
Mhm.
times when they're right on the rim and they both are, and when they both are, then they can line up
Yep.
and draw
Yep.
little lines on our little planet.
Just like I showed you in that picture right there. So
Mhm.
yeah. Yep. That's exactly it.
And so what happens is when those happen, I mean, they're not something that happens every day, and they actually happen. You'll hear people talk about the north and south nodes. That's another thing for another show. But
Mhm.
it they line up with the north or the south node, and that's where the the eclipses happen. And right
Mhm.
now the nodes are they still in Taurus and Scorpio?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, but
That's why this one's kind of wonky
it's a
because
partial
the
eclipse. It's a
very
partial
yeah.
eclipse. Yeah. And that's a good point too. So before we even get to the May 5th eclipse, um, let's talk about what you can do right now real quick with this
Mhm.
29 Aries new moon eclipse. Let's focus on that, and then I'll talk about what you just said. Let me write this. Let me write it down so I don't forget, because sometimes I talk and then I forget what I'm going to talk
I
about.
know.
Elements. Okay. So what we can do with this new moon solar eclipse, um, again, is to set some goals, intentions, journal. If you're not into rituals, that's perfectly fine. But it wouldn't hurt, because it helps us just to focus and hone
Mhm.
in. It's not that you have to be overly religious or spiritual, but your group is, of course, but most people who see this will be. So do a ritual of some
Mhm.
sort, and just hone in on, like, the questions I mentioned earlier. What can I do right now? What's important for me? What do I need? And really be
Mhm.
selfish for just a little while, not egotistical asshole stuff. Oh, sorry,
That's
um,
okay.
selfish,
I've
but
never heard that word before.
some channels don't allow it. I swear a lot, but I do my best not to do it. You don't have to be that, but just go into your heart and it's like, what is it that I really need? What do I want? What do I need? Think of yourself right now. It's so important. And what can I leave behind that has just been overwhelming and too much? And I do not need to bring it forward. Just like I said, like,
Mhm.
you got one carry-on bag. That is it. What are you bringing with you? Set goals like that. And if you don't know how to set goals like that, that's fine too. Just write down how you're feeling.
Mhm.
Journal how you're feeling. It's just like, today so many people needed so many things from me. I don't even know how I'm going to have time, to wash my hair or take a
Mhm.
shower. That sounds like that, write that down. That's
Mhm.
an Aries thing. That's a new moon in Aries. It's like you're recognizing everybody else is requiring stuff from you
Mhm.
and you don't have time for yourself. So do that, please. We don't have to make it a humongous deal. We don't have to sit down and go, oh my God, nothing happened on that day. I want you just to get out your journal and write down how you're feeling and write out some intentions. And then just
Mhm.
go do something for yourself for 5 minutes
Mhm.
or a couple hours. That's what we can do there. Now, this this year 2023, besides everything else that's going on, because there's always a ton of things, um no major aspects between outer planets at all this year, which is perfectly good. But we have planets changing signs, as we know. Jupiter did, and
Mhm.
Jupiter will into Taurus. Saturn went into Pisces, and Pluto is now in Aquarius.
Mhm.
So we have those big changes. That's important. Now, the four eclipses we have this year are represented by the four elements, right? They represent all
Right.
four elements. This one we have on the 19th and the 20th is in air. The one
Mhm.
that we have in May, I actually got to get my notes. The one we have in May,
It's
May
Earth.
5th, is in Scorpio, so that's water.
Water. Okay.
The one we have on October 14th, which is the annual solar eclipse. We will be able to see that one here in the United States. Nancy Jean and I are going to do another video on that because that's
Mhm.
big. That one's in Libra, so that's air. And then the one on the 28th, the lunar eclipse, is in Taurus. So we have fire, water, air, and earth. So
Mhm.
even though the lunar nodes represent that place in space where the sun, the moon, and the earth line up.
Mhm.
It's that. So they will be near, those symbols will be near where
Right.
the eclipses are. They have to be. The sun has to be within, I think, 15 degrees of the lunar,
Mhm.
one of the nodes, for it to be an eclipse. Otherwise, it's not an eclipse. So those lunar nodes coincide with eclipses, but as they're there's an 18-month cycle. Again, this one, on the 20th, the 19th, the 20th being in the fire sign,
Mhm.
it's just, again, it's given us an opportunity to take all four elements, the air, earth, fire, water elements, and really figure out how to embody them, how
Right.
to really pull them in. So to me, I find this is something that will help us to, feel more secure. There's an awful
Mhm.
lot of crap going on in the world, and there's a lot of insecurities in every area of life. But
Mhm.
the biggest and most important thing that we can do is stay in our lane, be the activist that you want to be,
Mhm.
whether it's local or national, whatever you want
Mhm.
to do, or just, your state, your county, your city, whatever it is that's important to you, or maybe just your family. Do it.
Right.
Just be you, though. But, don't
Mhm.
get overwhelmed by everything else out there, because we've gone through world wars, we've gone through all kinds of civil wars, we've gone through all kinds of things, and we're still here. So,
Mhm.
while it does stink and there's no denying what's happening, um, you know, stay in your lane. And to top all of this off,
Mhm.
everybody loves Mercury retrograde. He goes retrograde on the 21st, the day
Yeah.
after the
So
eclipse,
immediately after. Mhm.
at 15 degrees of Taurus. And that degree of Taurus, that degree of fixed signs, 15 degrees of fixed signs, is a critical point in astrology.
Mhm.
And not critical, I'm in the hospital, but critical, we're feeling it. So
Mhm.
whenever anything makes its movement through around 15 degrees, Uranus was there last year. Now Mercury is going to be at 15 degrees. It's 45 degrees from those cardinal points we talked about
Right.
earlier. 0 Aries, 0 Cancer, Libra, Capricorn, spring, fall, summer, fall, winter. It's
Mhm.
45 degrees from that. And that means it's a hard angle. And that means things have culminated and are building to a point. So I do see April 19th, 20, 21st, these 3 days, and
It's
a few on
important
either
day.
side are really, if you're feeling the pressure, if things haven't shifted for you in a way that you want them to shift, or you're reluctant to make a change, there's going to be, for most of us, a lot of pressure. You will feel anxiety
Right.
and stress around this. So I'm going to ask you, before we get to that date, because we're getting this out a couple days ahead of
Yeah.
time, deflate some of these things that are building pressure. You know
Oh,
what your life is, right? You
right.
know where that is. I personally don't have anything like that. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. But, because I take action and
Before.
sometimes I don't. And I'm just like you and everybody else. And sometimes I don't. And I was like, well, I saw that coming. Shoot. Why didn't I blah, 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 fill in the blank? Well, you guys have a little heads up.
Well,
Try and do something.
the other part is to acknowledge that that pressure isn't just inside of you.
Oh,
That
yeah.
pressure is everywhere. And I can tell you
Good point.
the people, trines are where the energy flows in a triangle. And if you've ever watched me do numerology, you
Yeah.
understand that trines are easy energy flows.
They're the same
Squares,
element. Mhm.
squares are where your body gets a chance to think. You're going along, you hit a corner, you have to go down the next corner.
Mhm.
So there are times to stop. People who have a lot of squares and those sorts of angles on their charts, they tend to be people who move and do things because
That's right. Because
they
they're
got no
motivated to
choice.
do it. You have to. Yes, you have to.
And people with lots of trines are like, oh, I can just sit here and drift along. And they do. I mean, and that and if you don't know about drawing your own chart before you came over, it's your fault. Your chart looks like that. I keep saying, damn, what was I thinking of? Why did I draw
It's
my chart like
because we really do learn from the squares. But even if you don't have squares in your natal chart, the planets in the sky
that? Are going to put
will
them there.
make a 90-degree angle to something in your chart,
Mhm.
like for Jupiter, while everybody thinks he is the great benefic, he is a happy camper, he's going to give us more of everything that we have, and then we're going to feel like, oh wow, I ate too much.
Mhm.
And so if he gives us too much and he's making a square to something, he's going to make you very aware. If he's making a square to one of those trines, he's going to make you
Mhm.
very aware that something's out of balance and you're not going to like it. But sometimes we just have to do it, which is fine. It's just, just step up and do your stuff, man. I'm
Yes,
a
and
Gemini. I'm a Gemini. I can flow like that. It's like, just do
yes.
it. But I have Taurus rising, so I am a little slow in some things. I am
Hey,
definitely.
Tauruses aren't slow. That's where my son is.
I'm a Taurus rising. I'm slow about
No,
some
we
things.
tend to dig our feet in, put our horns down, and not want to move. And
Yeah.
I have a lot of planets and things that say move, and I also have Scorpio rising, so you don't.
That's fixed. That's fixed. Fixed
Yeah.
sign. Taurus rising. His Taurus is fixed. Scorpio's
Mhm.
fixed. Aquarius, Leo, all fixed. Yeah, they dig their
And
heels in.
honest to God, guys, a little bit of insight into how what we chose to become made, how we chose to make this life can be
Yeah,
incredibly helpful to you. And so I hope an intention is just uh, a, a thoughtful wish for yourself. So
yeah.
just what kind of intention? A thought, it can be a short-term thing,
Mhm.
like, or
Yeah,
it can be a long-term thing. It just depends on where you
right.
are. And, so don't freak out about having to make intentions. I used to sit at
Right.
table and read with people and say, okay, you need to do a good intentions list. And they look at you like, I have to plan the rest of my life today. No, you have to look
No.
at what's realistically around you and pick the few things you can possibly actually change.
Yeah, yeah. And like I said, if you're not into doing the rituals and setting intentions, which in other words, making a list,
Mm-hmm.
just simply write down how you're feeling.
Mm-hmm.
That is enough. So you don't have to, because I'm not good at lists either. I'm not good at writing out, oh, I wish blah blah blah, because I've been trained not to be in that ego place, right? Who hasn't, especially our generation as women.
Mm-hmm.
But just write it down. And we do have one more eclipse. So before we go, we want to talk about May 5th, but I'm sorry, I didn't mean to
Yeah,
interrupt.
go,
Finish your
go May
thought.
5th. Go May 5th. You talk
Go
about
May 5th. All right. Let me show it. Let me show that you can have something to look at instead of just our faces. There it goes. It takes a second to show up. Zoom is a little glitchy these days. If anybody knows the people at Zoom, they could fix it anytime now.
They put on all those new apps, and so they're busy working with that.
Yeah, something is definitely glitchy about it these days. This is what it looks like for my latitude and longitude. So don't worry about the house placements because I don't live in the same place as everybody listening. But this is what it looks like for May 5th. And this is a full moon lunar eclipse, and it's at 14 degrees of Scorpio. And that is the fixed water sign. And what that shows, that is deep, it's intense, and we become we are made aware of what is working in our lives and what isn't. Full moons are always like that, but when it's an eclipse, it's incredibly important to pay attention to, especially the full moons, because something somewhere in your life will be illuminated. And the most important, it's not the most important thing, but you should know if you're aware of your own life and what's happening in your own life. But to find the placement of where is 14 degrees and 58 minutes of Scorpio in your chart. For me, I have it in my 6th house, which is my daily routine and my health and my wellness. And I'm working on something that's long-term health bullshit that I'm trying to figure out how to make myself better in something. And so, it's good. It keeps illuminating that area. For the last couple of eclipses will be in there for me. So I know I'm focusing on what my daily routine is. I'm needing to make a deeper transformative change. And the deeper transformative change is true for everybody. But to find out where it is in your own astrology, you can email me your birth. Email me. Don't post your birth date and time on YouTube, please.
No, comments are
I
unpostable.
delete people. I hide those comments when people do that, not to be a jerk, but because it's like, seriously, don't put your birth info on the internet.
This is like you. This is like handing somebody your DNA. It's really
Kind of.
you people. That's why you find so many celebrities that nobody knows the time of their birth. It's not that their mothers were stupid, but there's a lot of people who
Yeah.
know when you get the ascendant and all of the chart together, you
Mhm.
can really start to see things. So,
This is why astrology was outlawed and became a crime back
mhm,
in, I can't remember when it was, but it was because only royalty had it done. So if you were ever to read the chart of the do the astrology of the king, you could
mhm,
tell when they could predict when he was going to pass away, because there's a few things they talk about with royalty.
mhm.
And that was against the king or the queen. So that's why it was outlawed, because you could see things about what was going on with that person.
So it's just like you don't give out your social security number.
Yeah, I know it. You just don't. Just don't do it. And so with this full moon eclipse, you know, I have I'll talk about this. This isn't individually on my YouTube channel yet, but every moon has a lunar cycle. Every new moon starts a lunar cycle that involves a new moon in the same area as a first quarter 9 months later, as a
Mhm.
full moon 9 months later, and 9 months after that is the last quarter, and then 9 months later we start a new moon again. And usually that moon is almost always within 4 or 5 degrees of itself. And so I'll give you those dates for something fun to look up. Look up November 4th, 2021. We had a
Mhm.
new moon at 12 degrees of Scorpio. 9 months, and that's when something would have been begun, initiated. Look at what was
Mhm.
going on in your life then. It doesn't mean you initiated something. You could have, but somebody else could have initiated something and you had to respond to it.
Right.
November 4th, 2021. 9 months after that was August 5th, 2022. And that was the first quarter. The sun and the moon are square, and the moon was at 13 Scorpio. And now, May 5th coming up, we have this full moon at 14 Scorpio. And that is super important. I don't have the other date, but it's 9 months after that is the last quarter. It's so important here because this full moon, especially from those other two events, it's really revealing something super important to you, super important to your personal life, to what was going on that was very deep. That moon in Scorpio is deep. It goes in, it wants to research, it wants to pay
Mhm.
attention, it wants to know what's happening. It's incredibly psychological. And we're hanging out really close with Uranus. This whole cycle of eclipses last year and this year have been really close with Uranus, which gives us an opportunity for innovation, being innovative, being creative, and a lot of that. So let me see if I can sharing that. Yeah, so because I didn't share the new moon that we have on the 19th and the 20th. Here it is. So that's what that looks like. That's what all of that looks like, those eclipses. And those are just some thoughts and some ideas. And I know I talk fast, so hit pause. You can scroll it back and write the
All
write the
kinds of ways to
content
play
down.
with it.
Huh?
Or follow Dorothy, get
Mhm.
on her thing, go subscribe. She posts the most marvelous little shorts
Yeah,
that
those are fun.
are fun to watch. But watch her longer shows because the shorts give you a really quick glimpse, but you might put the information together in the wrong order. So if you
Mhm.
do get a chance to listen to people talking with more depth about their subjects, I really love listening to any reader, astrologer, person,
Mhm.
however they divine what they do,
Yeah.
whatever tool they use. Um, I enjoy listening to them talk in a long format about how to get along, how to follow what's going on.
Because it makes sense. You need that. I mean, the
Mhm,
shorts are fun because it's just today's attention span. It's, TikTok, it's YouTube shorts. They're all the
mhm,
same thing on 60 seconds or under. And I get that. And I do that because it's fun and it's just short bits. But
mhm,
with Pluto in Aquarius, Saturn in Pisces,
mhm,
illusion, Neptune's still in Pisces and it's going to be there for another couple of years, but the illusion of the superficial is,
mhm,
it really needs to go. It needs to go. Saturn in Pisces is going to help lift that. It's going to help
mhm,
take that and remove that veil, so we're able really to see the truth of
mhm,
the spiritual, the metaphysical, the religious. Saturn is really going to
mhm.
call us all out. So while I myself do shorts, I've got 30 years of experience under my belt. I have no concerns for that. But the people that are really superficial and just really putting out crap content, that's really going to start coming out. But then again, who knows?
Well, maybe that's what you need to learn is, oh, that didn't really work. Why? And then think it through.
Yeah, because there's just a deeper story. So I think with our attention spans shorter and shorter, those short things give us a big dopamine hit,
Hmm.
and because they really do. And it's like we got to go deeper. We're really
Right.
being asked to go deeper, even though we're being incredibly distracted in a
Hmm.
lot of other ways. So I don't know. That's just
Well, it's
preaching here now.
Ti- time is speeding up, and
Mhm.
I've watched it happen over the last few years. We hit these points and I'll get a blast and time's going to speed up again, and I'm like, what? The best way to get through time quickly is to get rid of your old trash, your old
Yeah,
garbage that you don't need to carry anymore.
yeah,
And then it will go much more smoothly because you're not trying to drag yourself backwards. But
that's
that's
true.
part of knowing your chart, learning what can drag you backwards,
Mhm.
how to motivate yourself to go forward,
Yeah.
and I hope this helps you a
Mhm.
little bit with the eclipse. But I'm really interested in the eclipses that are coming up because we're going to be able to see them where I am. And I'm going to do a show
In
which
October.
teaches you how to make one of those little shadow boxes
Oh,
so you
cool.
can actually see it in real time.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
really easy. It's a fun thing to do with your grandkids. I've done it.
So let's give them a quick sneak peek,
Okay, where are we going
just a sneak peek. Um, let's see. I think I'll do this one.
now?
There
Yes.
we go. Here's a sneak peek. We will talk. Nancy Jean and I are going to do this. We'll do this when it gets closer. We
Hmm.
have a couple eclipses, October 2023 and April 2024, that go across the nation. We'll talk about what that means and what it's
Hmm.
all about when we get really close. It's an important batch of eclipses as well. So we are going to talk about that. And this is from NASA. I like, if you really want to know about eclipses, just go to NASA. Don't
Hmm.
go to any other site. NASA is science. Eclipses are
Hmm.
science. We put an astrological and a metaphysical influence and spin on it
Hmm.
because that's what we want to focus on, but it still is based off of science.
That's right. I mean, they
Mhm.
got to get up there and measure them somehow. The cool
Yeah.
thing about that chart Dorothy just showed is it shows in different parts of the country what time it would be during that day and stuff. It's really,
Yep.
really good. And
Yeah.
so I encourage y'all to keep the faith, look
Yeah.
up, not
And
like,
trust yourself, man. Sorry
right.
to interrupt. I want you to trust your instincts. And even if you don't know your own astrology, you don't have to. You listen to what you want to listen to. You follow Nancy Jean. You come follow me. You do what you do. You follow your own influence. You follow your own heart and what you know you
Mhm.
feel is right. And if somebody like me or Nancy Jean is talking over your head, because I know that can happen, just say, okay, I don't know. I'm gonna understand what I need to understand, and don't drop it. Just continue to move
Mhm.
forward. And the ultimate authority is always you.
That's right.
Always.
It's what makes the insides of you and who you are.
Yeah.
So thank you so much, Dorothy, for coming to see us
It's been
today.
a blast. I'll see you guys again soon.
Okay. Bye bye, everybody.